Hello YouTube, I'm back with the next Battlebots review, and today I'm reviewing Episode 7 of Season 1.0. This is where we get into a little bit of details on get a little bit of middleweight action with Deblo versus, actually it's mostly middleweights in this episode, because you got Deblo versus Alien Gladiator, Pressure Drop versus, Ankle Biter, and then Minion versus Grendel. Start with Deblo versus, Alien Gladiator, and this is a fight that kind of sort of becomes infamous, mostly because on Deblo's side, it wasn't a whole lot of action going on with it, mostly because Alien Gladiator didn't do much of anything. They didn't really have the weapon system to take on Deblo. And Deblo didn't really, as far as we know, really have the weapon system to take on Alien Gladiator. I mean, they had a better weapon in terms of being able to attack, except for one thing. It gets down to a point where Alien Gladiator gets trapped under the Hellraisers, which were thanks to its mace, although I think it was dead before then, so we have no idea what caused that, whether it was probably burned out their motors or something just got jarred loose, or it was just radio interference. That could be that too, but either way, Deblo started pounding away at him, and then his hammer snapped off due to metal fatigue. So that's kind of what it became known for at that point, and then it was kind of questionable as to whether or not they could get it repaired. But in the interview, Grant O'Mahara, Grant O'Mahara, the one from Mythbusters, the same person. We've got Jamie Heineman, who built Blendo. He appears. We don't see him actually as a person until season 2.0, but his robot did compete. It had been competing for at least a few years up to this point. This is also Deblo's debut on the Comedy Central series. It did debut in the pay-per-view. I don't think that was actually televised. But Deblo was actually, I think, arguably a lot more potent. I think back in the Long Beach 1999 event, it had a huge-looking hammer. It actually swung 180 degrees, a lot like Frenzy did. But even in later seasons, Frenzy. But it wasn't that great of a fight. I mean, I guess it had a notable moment, Deblo losing his hammer. I mean, that was kind of surprising. I don't think anybody expected that to happen, considering but it goes to show you that I think Alien Gladiator had the armor, or Deblo's weapon may have been weak from the start. He may have had some metal fatigue from the repeated hits. You kind of see it before it happens. You can see the arm bend at an angle it shouldn't be. It should be perfectly straight, as we know Deblo at this point. So, who knows? Maybe there was an untelevised fight we don't know about, but I don't think so. This was probably the fight they saw, and it was just weak from the repeated attacks, including hitting the floor. That probably didn't do it very good. It may have just been down to the amount of sheer power behind the weapon hitting the floor and the opponent, and then it sheared off. But, Deblo moved on. Nothing else he could do, really, in that fight. It was, except shove him around, maybe, but then, of course, as we already know, by this point, Alien Gladiator was caught in the Hellraisers. There's not much Deblo could have done to get them out. Not that they would have wanted to get them out, and they ended up winning the fight by knockout. Kind of, sort of unspectacularly, but, kind of humorously as well. But, Deblo moved on. They confirmed they had a spare, so they were in advance. Then we go on to Pressure Drop versus Ankle Biter. Now that is another bit of controversy, because as we already know, Pressure Drop had already won a fight with two cheap shots, at least one cheap shot after the buzzer. Randy Eubanks was definitely not happy about that. So now he's facing Ankle Biter, probably an equally tough opponent, because with another wedge, another bot that could probably more than likely easily shove Pressure Drop around, and we saw a lot of that during the fight. Pressure Drop couldn't land a single hit, because their chisel was much too far away and much too slow to really be that effective at all. Now, if it actually landed some hits, who knows? Actually, if it actually been more like Deblo's hammer, it probably could have had a lot more, at least put up more of a fighting chance. It probably wouldn't have won the fight. It was a walker. But, it ended up, Ankle Biter had the fight won, more or less, because they were shoving Pressure Drop around. They even got him up to the point where Pressure Drop was kind of sort of stuck in the spike strip. Ankle Biter did get nicked by the kill saws, but that wasn't going to do it very much. They just spent too much time over there. They were just spinning in circles, I think, just on their own accord. They were perfectly fine, as far as I'm aware. And then they made a driving error and drove under the spike strip. Their wedge was low enough that where the spike strip sits on the floor was enough of a gap. They got themselves stuck and couldn't move after that. And Pressure Drop, oddly enough, was able to literally walk away with another win. And I don't think anybody expected them to win after the pressure of subject to change without reason, especially considering that was a lucky win. Considering, again, subject to change without reason was also winning that fight and then burned up their speed controller and basically died in the middle of the floor. So now pressure drop at this point has won another fight without having to do much of anything, just the opponent kill itself, kind of, sort of. And then we go on to Minion versus Grendel. This is where Minion basically exploited all of Grendel's weaknesses throughout the bout because they were in control of the fight almost from the get-go. It was a little bit of a point where, it was a little bit of a tug-of-war, but I don't think it was by much. I mean, Minions was mostly got to a point where they're kind of going back and forth, almost as though they were stuck together. Grendel had their weapon, down, I guess, in some way to try to get a grip on Minion, but Minion, I think, had more control as a whole. I mean, Grendel couldn't fire the weapon in time. They were lucky to win against Dissector. Basically, kicked the bucket against the spike strip. They didn't have enough power going to the batteries, so they couldn't go anywhere. And then Minion ended up dominating the fight, shoving them to basically every hazard in the arena. Every set of kill saws dead, and functioning and non-functioning as it turns out. But Grendel couldn't really do much of anything. I mean, I guess it had the potential. I mean, it sort of could have been used as a thwack pod. Kind of sort of tried that at the beginning, but Minion is way too quick. Even though all they had was a wedge, there was more than enough to dominate Grendel, who had pretty high ground clearance and very slow weaponry. Not gonna win you too many fights unless your opponent quits working, really. But even then, it's we never saw Grendel after this point. This was the end of Grendel from Battlebots, but despite that, it was actually made into a toy. It was actually got released as one of the Grip and Grapplers. I already reviewed that earlier. But obviously it had some popularity. It was probably more of a crowd appeal than anything else. That's probably why it got made into a toy. And maybe because it's easy to replicate as a toy versus something else. Also a hammer versus, say, another wedge or something like that. I have no disdain against wedges in case you were ever curious. Just saying they want to avoid repetition, a lot like the Hexbug does now with the modern BattleBots. They want to have a little bit of variety. But yeah, it wasn't a bad episode. I mean, we got to see some moments at least you could remember and kind of forget the stuff that was kind of a little less exciting. Although you're probably still, and it was probably still topped by Pressure Drop's previous match without a doubt. I mean, a lot of the matches could have been topped by that because it was just so unexpected, very controversial. As we find out much later, Randy gets over the event. But yeah, it wasn't a bad episode. I mean, I can't give it, it was probably arguably better than Frenzy versus Overkill, but then a lot of battles would be. Because that fight, was a lot of swinging and a lot of missing. And even when they hit, there was no real damage being done. You didn't see, smoke coming out of anybody or anything like that. No fires or anything like that. We get much better as the season goes on. But now, that's my review on BattleBots Season 1.0, Episode 7. Thanks for